fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, say. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah!
Hiya, hiya, Coolest Geeks. It's me, Jesse Blaze Snider, Coolest Geek Alive. For those of you who have been writing me noting that you love how I come into the show saying things that the Muppets say. What else would I say? What else would Jesse Blaze Snider say? But hi-ho, Jesse Blaze Snider here, Coolest Geek Alive, coming to you from my apartment. It's actually really funny. I'm like, I'm just like chill out for a second because I was doing some work. Watch a little video right before I record my show, and I go on YouTube, and the Critical Drinker had just posted his coverage of Reacher Season 2. And I'm going to talk about Reacher Season 2 and Season 1. Season 1 and Season 2. Talk about Reacher as a whole. It's really funny. I mentioned that. Shout out to the Critical Drinker. I adore him. I've come into contact with him once or twice. He's clearly somebody who loves film and loves storytelling. And, he really does a nice, concise effort to break down why some of these things aren't working for the audience and why some of them are. And something that he said at the very end of his thing, I think is really important to note, which he said a show like Reacher 20 years ago probably would have just been drowned out by other slightly more interesting shows of a similar nature. It's kind of weird for me to recommend Reacher. It took a minute for me to decide, fuck it, let's try Reacher. Because to me, Reacher is just outside of the geek culture zone. I did a greatest geek culture films of all time, and I was in a long deliberation of whether or not I should include Dr. No, and Dr. No is really the one for me that I think is closest to the books as I understand, and I really, that movie I think is very cool. Dr. No, unlike so many of the other ones. The more recent James Bonds I enjoy, but it was a classic geek culture thing. And ultimately I decided no, because essentially it's like, it's always been kind of acceptable for normal people to go watch a cop drama or a hospital drama or an army drama, a military drama. So a special agent of some kind, Jack Bauer or otherwise, seems really just as mainstream as you could possibly get. So generally speaking, that's not the stuff that I gravitate towards. I gravitate towards the science fiction twist, the fantasy twist. I need something that's like really supernatural or something that's it's going to make the stakes more interesting than what I'm dealing with in my normal everyday life. Even though I know I'm not a military person or whatever, I'm dealing with that on the news. I'm dealing with that in ways. These are things that are actually going on in our reality that we're very well aware of. Because I would say nowadays, many of these things that are talked about in some of these weird science fiction shows and whatnot, I think are actually going on in our reality as well. But they're not being talked about or focused on as much. And, these are the things I like to talk about and focus on. So Reacher for me is not exactly a typical Coolest Geek Alive pick. And actually, I'll talk for a second about trying to bring more positivity into the world. I've told you guys I've got a new podcast for music that I'm doing every Monday called All Your Favorite Bands Suck. I did My Chemical Romance this past Monday, Nickelback week before that. I'm about to do B.O.B. this week. B.O.B. is so good. But in doing that podcast, I noticed something. My podcast, even though it has a negative name, All Your Favorite Bands Suck, it's just an ode to all of my favorite bands that I think are so awesome and I think deserve more attention, more mainstream attention. I think in general, punk rock and humor and, metal and rock and rap and so many things, ska and otherwise, get marginalized and, made smaller, because of the style of music they might be or whatever, in how they're regarded. And so, my show's trying to shine a light on those acts. So every week I talk about a band and I just fucking gush about this band that I love and talk about all these songs that I love and all this stuff about them that I love for, a half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever. And it was such a contrast to what's been going on over here where I'm just like ripping on shit and tearing things apart. And I don't think that negative energy is the complete solution to the problem. I do think that, a proper repudiation of the thing in love is very important, and that's why, I don't tear these things apart. Because I remember being accused once by somebody of being sort of like negative about like that I was always negative about movies. Like we would like come out of the movie and I would say whatever it was I was saying about the movie. And they'd be like, "You're always so negative." And that time I was like, I wasn't saying that to be negative. I was just sort of dissecting it and looking at it in a lot of different ways. I liked it, but this was an interesting aspect of it that I found confusing, or whatever it might be. I can't help but like look at things with a discerning eye, particularly because I'm a writer and and I want to be better than I was yesterday. And every single moment of my life I see as a learning experience, that I'm like absorbing information, I'm absorbing dialogue, I'm absorbing story ideas, I'm absorbing real life, and I'm absorbing information about things. I'm just always absorbing information. My ADHD brain just has never stopped. I'm just like a vacuum for info. And I used to be a real like crazy consumer of media, and I still consume plenty of media, but not like I did when I was younger. Like my backstock of films and and just seeing classic movies and watching classic comedians and classic stand-up and reading classic comics, and just like, oh my God, I've done so much of that. And it's been relatively easier to take myself out of that high gear and just like pay attention and enjoy a certain amount of media and still be generally getting the best of everything, because things have not been so awesome. I have not found. I don't know what your general experience with the entertainment has been, but it's been a click down. And something like Reacher 20 years ago would have been surrounded by similar things that were similarly awesome. I can't say that Reacher's doing anything that's particularly it's not doing anything particularly exceptional concept-wise or story-wise. The things that Reacher has going for it are twofold, and it's one of the reasons why I do think, ultimately it totally falls into that geek culture form, especially in this day and age where we're so starved for things that are very much honoring the source material. And there's a little story that goes with this, which you might have heard about a movie called Jack Reacher, starring Tom Cruise a little while ago. I never watched the movie for whatever reason. I almost watched it a bunch of times, and I just never got around to watching it. I like Tom Cruise in general, but it just didn't grab me. And apparently, there was a lot of pushback because the basic tenet of the main character of Reacher is that he's this giant 6'5" man that is like really imposing, and Tom Cruise does not fit that description. Even though Tom's cool and all, but like you can't play every part, Tom, unless you want to wear a muscle suit. Like you wore the suit in Tropic Thunder to make yourself old and fat. There you go, muscle suit, case closed, solved. You're in. But anyway, the fans at the time were like, this is just so fundamental, and this goes to show it's not about race. It's not about sex. You put Tom Cruise in the role of Jack Reacher, he's 5'7", 6'7" on a good day. I'm not sure, but he's not tall enough. He's not imposing enough. He doesn't fit the role. Well, no gender swap, no sex swap. No gender swap, no race swap, whatever. And people were like, this sucks. Change it. So right there, and wow, these books have been going for a long time. He's got like, I don't know, 20, not like at least like 20, 28, more than that, well over 20 plus, like with shorts and stuff like that, like way more than that. Novels and shorts and novellas that he's written for the Jack Reacher character, and I haven't read them myself, but this incarnation of Reacher was predicated upon getting it right this time with the main character, and boy, oh boy, did they get it right with this fucking casting. And I know this guy's been showing up in other things here or there, and I think some people have some other experiences with what's his name? I'm pulling up the IMDb because a lot of these most of these people are all new to me. But Alan Ritchson, he's great, man. Like, so I guess he was Raphael's voice in TV Ninja Turtles. He does have a great voice. In the recent Michael Bay ones, had part in Fast X, was in the Hunger Games. Oh wow, I didn't get this. I didn't get that far in Titans to see him, or maybe I did. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I did see him as Hank Hall in the Titans show. Because I do feel like I remember seeing that. I probably just didn't know. That was probably the first time I saw him as an actor. Now I've been like recognizing him. Yeah, so I mean, he did some. He's had a lot of different roles throughout the years. Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Blue Mountain State and Workaholics. I see here all sorts of stuff. Like I know I'd seen him around, but he's really like they say there's no movie stars and stuff. Like I find him very captivating. I totally got a man crush on him. He's like, I mean, like too big. he's a big dude. He can't put his arms down. Like seriously, like in every shot when he's standing, he's just like standing like, as my friend used to say, like he's got two invisible briefcases underneath his arms. And in every single shot, but like it's natural. He's not like putting it on. Like he can't put his arms down because he's so fucking big. And he is like handsome, but like and like attractive in a way. Like I don't know, like a fucking tiger or some shit. Like really, like he's got squinty eyes. He's fierce. He's got fierce blue steel. Does a great blue steel, this motherfucker. No, me and my friend were literally like, man, he's like fucking like. I mean, it's the role too, but this is the thing, to really do right by the geek culture is to cast the role right. And this role is of this opposing man who like everybody is just constantly commenting on how gigantic he is. And if it was cast wrong, you'd be like, but it's not. And you're like, yeah, fuck, he's a beast. This motherfucker. like he's just, all I'm saying is when they recast Captain America, if they don't cast this dude as Captain America, we are being robbed as geeks. Like, fuck, he would make such a great Steve Rogers. Like, holy shit. If this role is any indication, we talked about how they destroyed the Western genre by making it dark and twisted and making cowboys nobody that you'd ever want to know or want to care about. The white hat cowboys and the white suited cowboys became all these dastardly cowboys or wreck cowboys or drunk cowboys or whatever it was. And that was what ultimately killed the Western genre. It wasn't actually the love of the genre, because the heroes of the Western genre were what people loved. And when Hollywood killed it by trying to reframe it and change it to this harrowing kind of thing, that's what killed it. And Reacher is definitely a return to the Western. It totally vibes like a Western. The first season in particular, the second season, the first season have totally different vibes, and I hope that they continue that, where either they return to the first vibe or whatever it might be. and follow the books, because I'm sure it's bouncing around and it's different types of stories with this guy, because he's basically a masterless samurai roaming around doing good deeds, and that's essentially what happens in the first season of the thing, even though it does tie into his backstory quite a bit, what he gets tied up in, but basically he just like shows up mysteriously in this town, and is pressing up against the people there, ultimately earning some of their respect as he smashes his way through the secrecy behind what's really going on in this sleepy little town. And the characters beside him in the first season are really great supporting characters. They got some real good castings for their bad guys and some of their sleazier characters. Some great moments. But in general, the Reacher series is just loaded with great moments. It's just constant great moments delivered by a dude who you believe saying all the things he's saying, because he's just saying like ridiculous things. If it were Tom Cruise, to some degree, I mean, maybe we would believe to a certain degree, but like, it just all seems so credible coming out of this motherfucker's mouth, because he's just like Goliath or something. He's like Hercules, a He-Man. Oh man, if they do a He-Man movie, fuck, get that dude. He's He-Man. He-Man. He'd make a great He-Man. I used to do a lot of construction with my ex's father's construction company, and I worked with the amigos, as we affectionately would call them, because they were living together, and there was a big language barrier between us, because I really, and granted, I picked up lots of little pieces of Spanish while I was working with them, in respect to, just so I could communicate with them a little bit, but because some of them could speak a little bit of English, so I would ask them, I was like, how do I say this? How do I say that? But I should say the biggest thing that we ever really bonded over, in particular, one of the dudes, Gabriel, was I'm singing fucking and Gabriel turns to me and he goes, "Hey, He-Man, 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 He-Man." I just love the language barrier crossing of like, I'm familiar with what you're familiar with, but not only am I going to say He-Man, I'm going to say He-Man, 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 in the echoing version of He-Man that you heard at the opening of the He-Man, He-Man, man. There's like this big echo. I'm not even sure if I'm doing it right. He-Man, man. Maybe that was it. I love you, Gabriel. Shout out to Gabriel. So we were He-Man pals after that. See, this is why I love geek culture, because it brings us together in ways like that. He-Man. Anyway, back to Jack Reacher. Yeah, Motherfucker Jones is awesome. He really is. He's like, the show is the show because he is so well cast, and because it seems to be really honoring the source material. Again, not having read the books, I can't verify all of this, other than I see that the fan base does seem to be relatively happy, so clearly they're doing close enough of a good job. They've adapted the first book in the series, whereas the film was an adaptation of one of the, many books in the series. It's somewhere in the middle. And then the second season is an adaptation of the second book in the series. So, if we see that they adapt the third book in the series, that'll be pretty awesome. We'll see how that all rolls out. I mean, I think it would be smart for them to. There's plenty of freaking options to just go straight forward, keep with that story. Pull from some of the books that have like some classic stories or whatever, if you will. But like, you don't have to go into, because they have books that like take place earlier and like tell like origin stories and stuff, so they can mine that stuff and just adapt forward. And I mean, they can do like many seasons of the show, and it'll be great. If it, anything that we can agree on can be great. Like anything done well can be awesome. So I really have like full faith that this can move forward, continuing to be made as lovingly as it's being made, with this great blueprint and with a really well cast lead, and continue getting him some great supporting characters and some good bad guys and shit. And they should have a great show going on here for a long time to come. It really is quite awesome. There's a guest appearance by one of the cast members from the first season. I won't say who because I don't want to spoil any of the stuff in the second season. And it's like so welcomed, and it just goes to show how much we liked and appreciated that character in the, in the first time around. And when they show, oh, yeah, it's them. So, and hopefully it'll be that kind of thing. It won't be like this Grogu situation where they're like, oh, they like Grogu, put Grogu back in there. Like, it's okay to make people want characters to come back and want characters to return. And if that's happening in the books, I'm sure that the books have already been acknowledging people liking characters or whatever else. Granted, sometimes books don't necessarily acknowledge characters that people fall in love with because people will be cast that are really good, better than the character is on the page, blah, blah, blah. Like, Robert Downey Jr. is better Iron Man than Iron Man is on the page, sometimes that happens, but there's some great stuff going on here, and hopefully it'll continue for a long time because I'm enjoying watching it. It's become a great little in-joke between me and my roommate Michael, because whenever anything masculine happens, he likes to yell, "Reach around." It's like whenever Richard like does something really masculine, and it's like this like unfunny joke that like it's sort of like ironic, but it's just like it's so well timed. Like I know when he's gonna do it, and it's making the show that much more fun to watch. So if you want to play the game, reach around every time, fuck it. There's a masculine moment that happens on Reacher. You can too. It makes it that much more fun. Do it with your husband for bonus points. He'll love that. Reach around. You'll be like, does that make your dick hard, honey? Let me check. Reach around. Anyway, it's just really solid. The first season in particular, I like. I'd say I mostly liked the second season just as much, even though I kind of prefer the vibe of the first season, and I'm hoping that the third season will return to something a little bit more like that, which it is set up to. I think it'll, generally speaking, it's like this is this man, this traveling Ronin. There's all these different stories with him. So, but the story builds and more characters get added into the thing, and he has more people that he can call in a pinch and blah, blah, blah. It's great. It's great setup for stuff, and it's definitely just the way the Reacher character is treated is, a certain amount of absolute. Because, really like great fiction is about absolutes. Like, that James Bond's going to always save the day. And granted, as they screw with those absolutes, they kind of fuck it up because these characters represent the myths, the mythological characters. It's like they're absolute. They can do this, they can do that. They do this thing. They're the god of this. It's like they are the greatest of this. In comics, that's what you have. Batman is the smartest man in the world. And anybody who doesn't write him as the smartest man in the world is going to get an audience going, I'm really mad. We flicked one switch here, essentially, with Batman, and it's that he's the smartest man in the world. Superman's switch is essentially he can do anything. But ultimately, he has to use that power for the highest good, because he is the representative of the highest good. Every great character, represents some sort of unflappable force. We watch movies because we want to watch somebody who wants something that they're determined to get. And we expect that they get it at the end of the movie. And if they don't get it at the end of the movie and we feel that they've earned it, we're pissed. It's like, that's a tragedy. Generally speaking, most movies are not tragedies. They're work, get the thing. Well, at least it used to be. Nowadays, there's a lot of just like wiggle, 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 wiggle. Hey, movie over, TV show over. Not a lot of struggle, and not the right kinds of struggle. Lots of petty struggle. Petty struggle on television. I hate it, like the kind of the WB model, the formula with like DC films and DC TV shows and stuff like that. I really couldn't last very long on it because I just hated the formula, and it's this formula of sort of like pettiness amongst friends, constant difficulty amongst friends, great people who are just constantly in situations that they can't avoid being in, and I can't tell this person this, and I can't tell that person this, just like frustrating dramas based around like their reactions to things and what they're doing to each other and blah, 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 blah. There was an edict on Star Trek that was about the conflict shouldn't come between the interpersonal relationships, but it should come from the outside. They're exploring this planet, they're running into these bad guys, this problem's coming up, and they need to work together to solve it. And the problems are largely outside of that. Doesn't mean that they will never fight or whatever else. Like, it's like they don't have to be perfectly perfect people. But the story drives the conflict, not so much all the petty people. Like, this is the infection of superficial society, reality TV, all this shit. When reality TV and like notions of cell phones and social media started to infect comic books, every time it would enter into the landscape of comics, I would cringe. I just like, the thing that I love about comic books is that at the end of the day, it's not a real person. It's a representation of one of these switches flipped. Reacher is a representation of this unstoppable force. The best you can, the best of the best of the best of the best of the best, the Rambo kind of archetype, the Batman archetype. And he represents it very, very well. He really embodies it. He's somebody that you believe could be that guy. And clearly has like some soul and, charm about him, even though his performance and his energy and stuff is relatively understated. So even like to say he's a movie star, he's not like hogging up all the screen. It's like an understated machismo and power. It's really, really saying something, but he's doing this mythological thing. And that's what we need. That's what we need in the landscape of fiction. These mythological creatures who are not beholden to the actor. Because as you put an actor into a role, and it's not just Steve Rogers, the archetype of patriotism, who will even stand up to his government if he has to for what he believes in. The archetype is paramount. But then you cast a face to it, and depending on the face, Robert Downey Jr. kind of eclipses Iron Man a little bit. Hugh Jackman, gives a tall order to the next person. That doesn't mean it's impossible to, keep these things going. And I do, but like the actor, the persona, that does take on another life. It becomes real, but at the same time, it also becomes easier to judge the thing. Like now, you got Captain Marvel, and fans are like, I like Captain Marvel from this story back in the day and whatnot, but I don't really like how Marvel's been doing these recent stories with da-da-da-da-da. But we're still attached to Captain Marvel because he's got a thing. Now we've got Brie Larson, and Brie Larson doesn't necessarily go on TV and say like all the right things. Well, now people are like, oh, fuck Brie Larson, and like fuck the people, Captain Marvel, and they've been pushing these stories that I didn't like. And, this is how these things kind of can easily become what like society is about, which is all this like tear them down and build them up, and get away from what the myths are about. And the myths are about absolutes and absolutism, black, white, gray, blue, red. Everything is its thing. You see that, and I understand what it means. Like to a certain degree, women having large breasts in comics, which some of it plays to boys just going nuts, like since they've been given the ability to do so. But it's really just a matter of, I want you to know she's a woman, and I want her to stand in contrast to the man. And I'm going to draw the man like this. And generally speaking, when you're drawing men in comics and they're in like superhero costumes, stuff like that, they have B cups. They have breasts, maybe C cups, So to differentiate the shape and size, it's about dynamic. And, you want to see the hard lines, the man, against the soft lines, the woman. These are generally the reasons why simple decisions like this are made. You're looking at an image of a lady. What is her expression on her face? This is all we have to work with, generally speaking, telling a story. Granted, you have a piece of dialogue coming out of her mouth that says, I'm sad. But generally speaking, comic books are a visual medium, and it's all about telling the story with the picture as easy as you possibly can. And generalizations like, this person has a lot of energy, and I'm going to make them redheaded. It wasn't meant to be racist. It's just sort of like a depiction of the people, and trying to easily personify a thing. In general, many people notice that, okay, there's a little bit more energy available to some of the people who have red hair. Okay, I'll make her a redhead. That sends the signal to the audience that oh yeah, I've known some people like this. Maybe, it's just trying to take on different archetypes, and archetypes tend to be like stereotyping, and it's like a stereotype that's like unchanging. You are the avatar of this thing. You are representing this vibe, this energy, and then you honor that vibe and you honor that energy in all these stories, and you bring in elements that contrast and compare that energy with different energies. And that is what storytelling in comic books and mythology and whatnot is all about. Teaching us something about the main energy that we've come to look at and worship and idolize and understand and study, by bringing in other things that we can compare it to and contrast it with. People being pushed up against their ideology. In the movie, in the second season, of Reacher, they do this rather well to some degree with a police officer figure that Reacher's just butting heads with the whole show, and and ultimately very similar people on a lot of levels, but different, coming from different backgrounds, different places, whatever else, slowly get to understand each other better. And this is the thing, that's how you do it. This is my pillar figure, and then I create other characters that if I press up against Reacher, it will affect Reacher in this interesting way, or Reacher will affect them in this interesting way. And often that is the case with these mythological characters. They go around and their myth affects the other people in all sorts of interesting ways, and different people are affected in different ways. And then occasionally Reacher comes up against people who affect him in interesting ways, whether it's bad guys or it's love interests or it's friends or loved ones, whatever it might be. So it's a wonderful thing that we got going on here with Reacher. And even though like I said, it's a just below the bar, generally speaking, for me, for the geek culture thing, I'm including it. And I guess I should give a shout out to Nerdrotic on YouTube, because I haven't watched any of the videos or anything, but he's been talking about enjoying Reacher for a long time. I kept hearing him mention it. Hi, Reacher, I'm gonna watch Reacher or whatever. And I was like, but it's just like I said, it's like the spy thing, special forces guy. Like I tend not to give a shit about that stuff. I need like some next level nonsense to get me all excited. But I do really dig the show. So I don't want to go off too much more about it, because it's theoretically like a review show. Well, I mean, I haven't spoiled anything, so I mean, it just gives me an opportunity to talk about so many of these different things without spoiling a lot. But I'll just get into the second season a little bit. Like I said, first season, it's he wanders into this town. In the second season, essentially he gets emergency tracked down from one of his old teammates who we meet in the first season. I'm pretty sure, yeah. And he gets together with some of his old team members, and through him working with them and seeing a lot of flashbacks to the building of this team, it's really interesting. I wasn't excited about it when I realized what the premise was going to be, and then at a certain point I was like, all right, maybe this will be kind of cool, and it did end up being very cool in deepening Reacher's character, because the one takeaway that I had of him as a character, of him as a man, was he was somebody who was willing to listen and learn from other people. And that essentially, in the flashbacks, you see him learning from all of his team members. All of his team members have these great different skills, each one of them, great skills of their own. And he has clearly picked up things from them, including a saying that he was using a lot in the first season that he actually got from a kind of love interest that he had in the second season that you see. And it's really handled really well. Typical thing where it's like this piece of dialogue that he said comes from this thing. But it was cool. It just showed his respect for his team. He picked this team and that he respected them and he was learning from them. And he was a good leader, learns from his team and understands what his team understands, and and tries to be their equals in the right way while leading them. And part of that is trying to understand as best you can what they understand, so you can not get in their way is one of the biggest things, and you can respect them at the highest level. When you make art, produce comic books, stuff like that, different people need different degrees of assistance sometimes. But the biggest thing is just making sure when the time comes, you get out of the way of the creative people that you've hired, if you've hired them because you think they're creative. Because if you want them to be creative, you got to give them space to go and be creative and do that stuff. I did a great book that Image Comics put out years ago called Blacklight District. You can still check it out for free. There's an album that goes with it. You listen to it and you read the comics as you go. It's called it's www.blacklightdistrict.co, and it's the quality that you'll find when you go look at it is there because I got out of the way. It's not because I micromanaged and I was like, I whipped this out of Jason Pearson. No, I gave Jason the parameters of like what I was looking to do, and I gave him the song that he was adapting, and I told him about a couple ideas I'd been thinking about, and vibes and stuff like that. But I told him basically like, I'm down for you to just interpret it however you want, and that's what he did. And I like he did a vampire thing. It's really cool, and I don't know, maybe that was thrown up in the mix or whatever by me. I don't know. I don't recall that I did. I'm pretty. I mean, not that I'm pretty sure. Like, because I definitely gave him some things. I gave him some ideas. I don't remember if that was it. I don't remember any of the ideas that I gave him now. I just remember what he did, and I was surprised at the time. Getting it. What he did. But I mean, it's so beautiful, and and everybody and me and Phil Hester worked similarly, and there were other people who I wrote a script for, to guide them and help them figure it out. I had Chris Burnham do the thumbnails for one of the ones for me, because he couldn't draw the whole thing, but he did the thumbnail layouts. So he did the cover as well. The cover is one of my favorite things ever. And the cover came from listening to my manager's partner, I guess, business partner. They were both managers, but he wasn't my manager. He was like her partner, who was also a manager. And he had suggested this cover of like the city's burning, and inside is the kid looking out the window burning in his room in that Blacklight District place that you were telling me about, Jesse, like with the posters and all this shit, like, and he's listening to music and he's safe with the music, but outside the world is burning. And I was like, that's dope. That sounds great. And then we gave this image idea to Chris Burnham and then Andrew Dahlhaus drew the colors, and oh my fucking God, it's like the most beautiful thing ever, and I mean, I didn't have much to do with that except, well, I mean, the initial Blacklight District concept, which was just the concept of my office, which was always filled with posters. I didn't actually use blacklight posters because my mom wouldn't let me have a blacklight because she said it caused cancer. It's funny. But I had a room surrounded by posters, and we had this, and my studio was always, like in my house, kind of my home studio in the Blacklight District. And that name, came about years later because I always wanted a blacklight poster and I was mad at my mom about it. But it was like a blacklight kind of room. That's what I wanted. That was my vision, but I wasn't allowed to have a blacklight poster, a blacklight thing. So the blacklight district became the name of the thing and that description of the room. But then it's the fire. Well, and that's the great way. Like here you go. I set it up. Here's the room, and then there's the fire, and then we bring in a great artist, and then we bring in a great colorist, and here's and then we get Brian Williams, who's an amazing designer and artist himself, to design the logo, and you have just have some beautiful shit. But it takes a team, and you got to understand what they're all doing, and you need to respect them. And I really loved that about the second season, that ultimately, like, his backstory was like part of why this dude's so cool is because he knows all these awesome people, and he was smart enough to learn as much as he could from all of them. Like, that's cool. And not only that, but while he was leading them as their leader, he was smart enough to take what they had as wisdom and bring it into himself. The cast in the second season is good. Like I said, Reacher he's the man. He's solid. I like the people around him. His like kind of best friend, Maria Sten, who shows up in the first season, is solid and credible. And his girlfriend, love interest, Serinda Swan, is pretty sweet. I dig her. There's also Sean Sipos, who's in the show I'm watching right now, Outer Range, which I don't know, recommend Outer Range or not. Like, it's like really well done suspense, but like I just feel like I'm not gonna like any of the answers. I'm just like predicting right now that wherever it ends, I'm gonna be like, well, that was annoying. There's some other great people in there. The guy who plays there's Robert Patrick Shane's in there. He's a little wasted. His character's not really super well defined, but he's chewing some scenery. A lot of the stuff with like some of the bad guys and things like that, it's a little typical action movie, whatever stuff. Like it's not like it's kind of like a C+ if it wasn't being anchored by such a great, credible dude and wasn't littered with real credible and good one-liners and clever situations. Like, they definitely do some convenient shit. Like there's a motorcycle gang battle in a parking lot when they're trying to kill them, and they're like going to kill them with regular weapons, like to be quiet, which just seems like, why not just like force them out of here at gunpoint and like, kill them somewhere else, or just kill them and get the fuck out of here, or I don't know. But like, convenient sort of like stuff like that. But in general, whatever the scenario is when the chips are down and they're like being choked against the wall, they always come up with something pretty clever, whether it's an interesting fighting move or an interesting approach to getting themselves out of it. Grabbing a piece of a high heel shoe and using it effectively. It's all very cleverly written and clearly thought has been put into the stuff, and largely sensical. Even though there are leaps of your believability here or there. Not like on Outer Limits where like the leaps of fucking believability, I'm just like, well, oh my God. But I don't know. Outer Limits, I'm still on the fence about that one. But included with Reacher is also like, some of the bad guys, and some more effectively than others. But like, in the second season, they've got a hitman played by Ferdinand Kingsley. And he's a neat bad guy. Not like, anybody in particular, but, just like a nice heightened, absolute kind of, hard to kill motherfucker. I also really love Dominic Lombardozzi, who's if you're a fan of The Wire like I am, The Wire is one of my favorite shows of all time. If you've never seen The Wire, go watch The Wire, man. Oh, great show. First season and second season are solid, but you'll be like, I don't know if it's the greatest show of all time. When you get to the third season, call me. And the fourth season, call me. And the fifth season isn't as great as the other ones before it, but it is still the greatest show I've ever seen. Learned so much from it as a writer. And I mean, really, just like go study at the fucking the altar of, I want to say David Simon. I don't know if I'm getting his name right. But whoever's the showrunner over there, he used to be a journalist. He's fucking brilliant. So, you know, I'm not going to get into like too many details about anything in the second season, though. I'll just say that it basically deals with sort of old business to some degree. Not really actually, but it's kind of new business, but it ends up forcing his old group of friends and compatriots together, as like some of his friends are killed. And I really just there's good stuff, like the deaths and stuff, like everything's good. So like I don't want to spoil anything, and I feel like talking about it just in general is a cool thing. It'll probably inspire you to go watch the show, which I think you definitely should. Yeah, man. That's all I got for you today, Coolest Geeks. I'm your host, Jesse Blaze Snider, Coolest Geek Alive. You guys are the best, my equals. I love you. Feel free to write me at jesseblaze@jessesnider.com. You can join me every Monday over on my music show, All Your Favorite Bands Suck. This coming Monday night, I will be releasing an episode about B.O.B., one of my favorite. He's so much more than a fucking hip-hop artist. And I don't like love his like just straight hip-hop stuff. And like if you're a hip-hop person, you'll probably love everything that he does because he's just brilliant. He really is brilliant. But I'm going to be talking about like, there's so much material of his that's just so amazing, and I think he's like gone independent to some degree, but he's put out so much music, and I'm like trying to actually listen to all the stuff that I haven't listened to, and there's tons of it. Some of it I love, and others is good, but not necessarily my favorite. But oh my god, there's so much great shit. So yeah, if you want to get into B.O.B. or you want to get into any of these other artists in the episodes we released, we've been doing it for a few months now, a couple months now. Like this is the third month. Anyway. That's all I got for you. Please do come back and join me next Saturday for another awesome Saturday episode where I'm going to be trying to do more of these like positive kind of review stuff and like point you towards some stuff. I'm thinking about maybe I might do Attack the Block next week. I love that movie. I want to turn more people onto it. And then, and this coming Wednesday for another fabulous episode of The Coolest Geek Alive. See you later. You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part! Isn't that heavy? It's gonna be fucking awesome. Coolest alive. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Stay with your tribe. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Revenge of the Geeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Week after weeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Laughing with you. It's gonna be fucking awesome. And crying sometimes too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Spelling it out. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Making you shout. I'm a genius. I got lyrics coming out me bum for days. You like that? It's a kazoo solo. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Talking some shit. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Living your shit. My voice is fucking awesome. Food in our mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Get in the mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be fucking awesome. It's starting soon. Straight to the top. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.
The podcast playground. Hooray!